All right, I see that it's 7:30, so I'd like to bring the Dartmouth Board of Public Works meeting for September 19th, 2024 to order. We'll start with a roll call vote. Director Alves,
Yeah,
Director LaBelle,
Here,
Director Almy is present. So we have a quorum, so we'll begin the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone who's interested in seeing the recording can contact Dartmouth TV. Their address and phone number are on the town's website. Okay, the first order of business is approve and accept the warrants for the bills payable period ending September 9, 16, and 23, 2024. Do I have a motion?
motion to approve and accept the warrants for the bills payable period ending September 9, 16, and 23 of 2024.
I have a motion
Second.
by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
second,
Second by Mr. Alves. All in favor? Roll call. Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Mr. Alves?
aye,
Chairman votes aye. The item is passed. Next item is, did I take that out of order? No. Next is approve and accept the payrolls for the weeks ending August 31st, September 7 and 14.
Motion to approve and accept the payrolls for week ending August 31st, September 7, and 14 of 2024.
Motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
second,
Second by Mr. Alves. Roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle,
Aye.
Mr. Alves,
aye,
chair votes aye. Item is passed. Next item is to approve and accept the meeting minutes from August 29, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I
First
just
of all, do we
have one issue.
question?
I just have one question on the minutes. If I can find it. On page 5, it notes that that Rick was here and voted, but I don't believe he was at that meeting.
that is correct. I was not here.
That would be the only correction I would suggest.
All right. Mr. Barber, can you pass that correction on to Jen Kite?
Will do.
All right. With that correction, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve and accept the meeting minutes from August 29th, 2024 with one minor correction.
Motion made by Mr. LaBelle, the chair seconds. Mr. Alves, since you weren't present, this will be a vote of 2 of the directors. How do you vote, Mr. LaBelle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are accepted with a minor correction. All right, next item under old business A is fall town meeting, a charter amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
just wanted to just update you that we do have 2 people from Hazen and Sawyer to present the II study on the new business. So if you'd like to take this out of order at any time, just giving you that option.
board members, what's your pleasure? Do you mind
That's
taking this
fine
out
with
of
me.
order? All right,
That's fine
Mr.
with me.
Alves? All right.
Wait. Sorry.
Mr. Barber, why don't we adjust the agenda so that Hazen and Sawyer can make their presentation at the beginning of our meeting?
So we have been working with Hazen and Sawyer since we contracted with them at the end of 23, and we've been working with them previous years as well for inflow and infiltration studies in town. Previous years have not resulted too well due to drought conditions during the study, but this past year we've had much better results with a lot of rain during the study. which even allowed us to move some sensors around to study other sections, during the proposed study. So, Ben Agrawal and Charlie Wilson are here from Hazen Sawyer to present their findings as well as moving forward with additional studies and recommended mitigation.
Great, thank you, Tim. Thank you,
You're welcome.
everyone. Ben Ackerwall from Hazen and Sawyer. So I'm going to go ahead, for those of you who are on a computer, and share my screen so you can kind of see some slides that we have just to walk through and give you a quick summary of this project. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Great.
I can.
And just stop me if you have any questions at any point. Just jump in and can take them as they come up. So just very briefly, we'll give you a quick overview of the monitoring program and kind of what we hope to accomplish with this INI study. Get into a little bit of a review of our methodology and some of the data we collected, and then talk a little bit about next steps in some of the areas that were identified as having INI and some next steps for further source identification. So like Tim had mentioned, there were two previous studies in 2018 and 2019 focused on sort of this region, the Lake Nokichoke area. Smaller scale studies, and the key thing about those is that, as Tim mentioned, there were drought conditions, not a lot of rainfall, so not a lot of INI identified. So going into this study, one of the major goals was to sort of blanket the whole town and capture any potential area. So the approach we took is, instead of using just flow meters, which are typically more expensive and more difficult to maintain, we developed an approach that utilizes flow meters and level sensors. The idea there being that flow meters can actually measure INI and tell you exactly how much excess flow you might be dealing with. And then level sensors, you can place more of them throughout the system and sort of start to pinpoint where INI sources are more likely to be. So if you look at this map over here on the right, these sort of yellow or orange crosses are level sensors, and then the red circles are flow meters. And one interesting thing about this study, and I'll mention this again a little bit later, is we did have great rainfall, good conditions for this sort of study, so we were able to move around some of the flow meters and level sensors as the study progressed, to further pinpoint potential INI sources. And that's what you can see here, is these red outlines show areas that we were able to further kind of hone in on and pinpoint by moving some of the sensors around. So, because we moved them around, we kind of broke it up into two phases, if you will. Phase one being where the sensors were originally, and then phase two after they were relocated. And just kind of a snapshot here. We got, numerous events, more than an inch of rain, high peak intensities, more than half an inch an hour in the first phase of study, and just really ideal conditions for this kind of a study. So the first phase, sensors were in for about 2 months, and then in mid-April, we were able to relocate some of these sensors and continue through the end of May. So, continued rainfall throughout the second phase, and one really, pretty large storm on May 15th, where we had over 5 inches of rain with a peak intensity of 1 inch per hour. So again, just, really ideal conditions for this kind of study. So in terms of methodology, there are kind of 3 metrics that we typically look at when we're talking about an INI to determine if it's considered excessive, or, if it's a smaller amount that's not as important. The first one, RDII, or R value, is basically just a measure of how much rainfall runoff becomes flow in the system. So kind of a normal industry standard threshold is about 5%. So, if more than 5% of runoff becomes flow in the system, that's considered excessive R value. And just to sort of further give some definition, we added a second category, which is, above 3%, considering that kind of a medium response. Next one, peak wet weather flow ratio. That's simply like a ratio of peak wet weather flow during an event to what the normal dry weather flow is at that point in time during the day. So, it's not normalized to the size of the system, but just an indication of, how much does flow change during wet weather. And then the last one, groundwater infiltration. This is a measure of how much infiltration is occurring during dry weather. So this is a normalized metric that's kind of, relative to the size of the system. So we look at gallons per day per inch diameter mile, and that just basically means how many gallons per day relative to the size of the system in that area. Essentially, in the area being measured, you just take the length of pipe multiplied by the diameter, and you have inch diameter miles. So 4,000 GPD per IDM is the metric that Mass DEP considers excessive for groundwater infiltration. And then the second category we added is above 2,000. It's kind of a between 2,000 and 4,000 is kind of a medium amount. So I'll show this in a map view in a second, but just kind of a snapshot of all the flow meters we had in the system. You can see some of these rows are colored in red. Those are the locations where we saw high INI amounts. So 4 with where the R value or capture coefficient was above 5%, meaning excessive. 2 in terms of GPD per IDM, so dry weather infiltration, kind of touched on that excessive threshold. And then what we did is for each of these, looked at all of these different categories, and if any of them got into the high threshold, that flow meter shed overall was ranked as having a high amount of INI. So, looking at it in terms of a map view, you can kind of see the areas that are colored in green are those that had a low amount of INI. The yellow is kind of the medium, and then red is the high INI amount. So I'll leave this up here for a second. There's some more slides, and I'll show you some examples of some of these. There's also a full project report that goes with this if you want any more information. But in general, the results here made sense. The older regions of the system had more INI, and the newer regions had less. And so there's a couple of these that we're going to point out in more detail in just a minute, but I'll leave this up here for 1 second. So before we get to the next part, one other thing that we wanted to just kind of explain is when we have flow meter data, we can start to pinpoint sources of INI to some extent. And the way we look at that is basically just, what is the pattern of the rainfall response? And so, this chart right here is basically showing you some of the data we collected, where the blue line, it's a little bit hard to see at this scale, is the actual measured data from a flow meter. This red line represents a normal dry weather, sort of diurnal flow pattern. And then this black line is sort of a calibrated hydrograph, like a response that we come up with to approximate how the system's responding. And what it allows us to do is come up with these metrics R1, R2, and R3, which helps us pinpoint, are the likely sources fast, meaning catch basins or area drains, medium response things like manhole covers, or slower sources like infiltration or sump pumps or things like that. So for each area, we went through and did this analysis to kind of think a little bit more about what the likely sources of INI are. And, I know at this point, we haven't talked much about the level sensors. Everything, the previous map I showed you was just based on the flow meters. But kind of the next step in this analysis is to layer in data from the level sensors. And what that allowed us to do is break up some of these big flow meter sheds and pinpoint where are sources most likely to exist within some of these big regions. And so this map is kind of a refinement of the previous one, where the red areas are those that are most likely to contain sources of INI. So kind of breaking it up, getting into smaller areas. And so, I won't take up your time going through all of them, but just an example of a few flow meter sheds here. This particular one measured by flow meter F4. And you can see, this entire region was ranked as having a high amount of INI, but the level sensor, which you can see right here, if you can see my cursor, kind of allowed us to break it up and say, okay, this area in yellow wasn't as responsive to wet weather, so the sources most likely exist in the area you can see in red on the map. And then doing that analysis I mentioned before, we're able to determine that most of the sources in this area are probably slower sources, things like infiltration or pipe defects, that kind of thing. One area that, we talking with Tim and his team that we wanted to focus on early in the project is a portion of the collection system that sends flow to New Bedford. And this one actually happened to have one of the highest overall wet weather responses. Capture coefficient was above 14%, so well above the 5% threshold. And the groundwater infiltration number was also just at that 5,000 GPD per IDM threshold. So this area stood out as one of the ones having high infiltration. And again, you can see this was predominantly slower sources such as sump pumps and broken pipes, that sort of thing. And one final one I'll highlight here. This entire region that you're looking at was measured by flow meter F9. Overall, a medium amount of INI, not quite at the 5% threshold. GPD per IDM wasn't at the the threshold for being excessive, but when you layer in the data from the level sensors, you can see there's clearly an area to focus on, this red area right here that has a high probability of containing INI sources that could be identified and removed. And kind of, if you put all this together, we're able to identify the regions that would benefit most from, next steps, meaning source identification, what are the actual sources of INI, and that would have the biggest impact in terms of removal. And so these areas on the map right here are those that we think, would benefit most from further investigation and INI removal. The red regions are those that had, a high volume of INI and a high probability based on the level sensors. The sort of yellow ones here are the ones that had a high volume and a medium probability. So still, lots of volume and a good probability of a source existing. And then the orange ones are those that had a medium volume, so not quite excessive, still a good amount, but also a high probability of a source existing. So in terms of next steps, these are the areas that we'd focus on. And so, like I was mentioning on some of the previous slides, each of these we do have some analysis of what the sources are most likely to be. And just kind of the general theme is, in general, is the slower sources like sump pumps and broken pipes or manhole defects, that sort of thing. So, some next steps and, possibilities on how to identify these sources are building inspections, CCTV, just getting a camera in the pipe and looking for defects. Smoke testing is one option, kind of pump smoke into the system and then see where it comes out and see if there's any broken pipes or roof drains or catch basins connected. And then another possibility could be dye testing. So kind of trace where things go when you add dye to the system. So I know quick overview here, quick snapshot, but that's all we had in terms of the presentation. So if there are any questions or want us to go back to anything?
Was there any correlation, Ben, between the flow meters at the treatment plant during the rain events? How much I, we're basically seeing getting into the system?
It's a great question. We haven't analyzed the flow at the treatment plant in this study yet. In some of the earlier ones, we did that and didn't find much of a correlation, but again, not a lot of rain, but it's a great point. That's something we could definitely look at.
Tim, do we see a problem during rain events?
We do, yes.
Significant?
Yes. Yeah. We have a
It's okay.
significant.
Okay.
Well, it
And
seems then that analysis would be fairly important, Tim, for a number of reasons, including priority and budgeting for any mitigation of the I&I as we move forward.
Absolutely.
Board members, any other questions?
I have a question. Assuming these sump pumps are eliminated because all the new water meters that were installed in town, had to go into people's basements and do such things. And I'm sure they, inspected the sump pumps and make sure that they weren't tied into the sewer system first and foremost. So I think that should have been eliminated from like the home inspection, right? And then second is you already have the crucial areas in town that have I&I. So question for everybody is, do you spend money on doing more study or come up with a contract on lining these line segments or sewer segments to eliminate I&I and add top hats on service connections, things of that nature? So how does the town, or Tim, do you recommend to proceed? Either do additional study? Is additional study based off of what you already sent us or doing needed? Or since you have these high I&Is already established and you're already talking the old section of town, which I'm assuming they're all clay pipe and 3-foot joints and things of that nature. So do you set up a contract and move forward that way, or do you do more studying?
I think I would recommend do a little more studying so we can pinpoint the areas a little more finite. So if you have a large section with a large number of roads and you say you have a single source where you have a broken pipe that's in the water table and taking in a lot of water during rainstorms, it might be nice to line all the pipe, but it would probably be expensive where you could cut that source where it lies,
Yeah,
eliminate.
I have a question. When we did the meter study, did they take pictures of the around the meter we could pick up some pumps? Because 9 out of 10 times they probably weren't told to take them out. They put them back. But I totally agree with a little more, maybe some TV in, because I know like L10, L11,
Yeah.
L13, that's all clay pipe with.
Yeah.
F4, that's going to be past the Masset area, AC pipe, major pipe. Country club area is going to be, that's deep and some shallow with wet area.
Yep.
That is 100% like Tim said. That's the AC pipe, wet area. Push on joints. Who knows if they fish them out, but a little more studying and getting a little more, maybe TV in and see what we got in those areas. But L10, 11, 13, 16. We did a great job on the village area, which didn't pick up much, which was clay pipe, and we did some lining there before. Rogers C F5. That's going to be a combination of AC and little clay on the top section, but that's back to one of our oldest contracts, probably a 68, 69, AC
But-
pipe down there.
But you can set up a contract for them to do the CCTV
Yes.
and do the lining accordingly. So again, do you do more studying or do you, set up a contract to do some additional cleaning? Obviously, they got to clean the pipe and then they camera it, and they find those crucial areas. And then if it's bad, then you set up a line item to line that line segment. And if you just do a small section, an open cut, then you're just defeating the purpose. In my opinion, and again, you should be lining from sewer manhole to sewer manhole because water's going to seek its least resistance. And it'll
Correct.
find its way into your pipe and other means and methods. So again, if you're trying to do an open cut and just do a short section, that kind of defeats the purpose, in my opinion. You have to do the whole line to get any elimination. But again, that's my opinion.
No, I wouldn't recommend just a single lining of a short section of the break. And you definitely want to go from manhole to manhole. I mean, unless you have a significant issue, then you'd have to, probably excavate and repair, but
Right.
I think, and going back to the metered endpoints, not all meter endpoints are inside. A large number of meter endpoints are outside on the house. So, when they replaced those endpoints on the outside, they weren't going into the house or into the basement. So,
Tim,
Yeah, I would think it's prudent to do some more investigation, try to find some of the low hanging fruit. These like in situ farm comes in, they're not going to mobilize to just do a couple of reaches. It's going to cost them too much money.
Yeah.
So you need to identify large sections that you want to reline. But by doing some additional studies, you can find that low hanging fruit and try to eliminate those, before you get into, larger projects like relining.
correct.
All of that stuff works, but it's, what can you afford?
I would be honest with you, F4, I'd hit that 4 first because it's on and off, proposed for the old Hawthorne Country Club development. That area back in is wet, big area.
Is that all clay pipe?
That's AC pipe work. That's a perfect candidate pipe for lining. The only thing I don't like is some of those, the way some of those developments tied into the back end, and not too long ago, some of them tied into an interceptor, according to manholes. That's altered. A lot of those manholes on the back end are in the easement areas. We've done quite a bit, we try to do our best over the years, too, I'm going to tell you, of identifying these low-lying manholes, raising them up. But it's, Ron, you understand, it's a never-ending battle because you go by to this year, next year something changes and something different there,
Yep.
You're picking up also,
And-
that's picking up North Dartmouth to the back end coming in.
You also
Tim,
mentioned flow.
go ahead, Ron.
I'm sorry.
That was it.
I'm sorry.
Hey,
Rick, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just another quick question. Someone mentioned the flow from New Bedford was high as well. If that's the case, is somebody doing something or coordinating with New Bedford to help eliminate their INI? And if not, then because that clean water is coming to the plant and being treated, which it shouldn't be, do we set up a meter and charge New Bedford because they have no problem charging us for the amount of water we're using? So do we go back on that?
Before you go any further, Rick,
Okay.
I just want to clarify that the flow is not coming from New Bedford. That flow actually flows to New Bedford.
To New Bedford. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was waiting for Rick to
Okay.
finish.
Okay, my bad.
No, that's
I-
okay.
I,
It can be confusing, but that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and we did
Okay.
that. We did that area as well because I know it's one, like Paul said, it's one of the oldest sections in town, and the city of New Bedford has complained about some high flows in that area.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Right to
so I
see,
wanted to kind of isolate that area as well and see what we had for II.
One other thing I'd like to mention is, you know, if we work with Ben and, you know, move into a more defined study of sources, okay? We should be also looking for cross connections, especially in that area where Dartmouth and New Bedford are adjacent to one another.
Mhm.
I know there's cross connections in those areas, and you know, combining that wouldn't be a bad idea.
All right,
agree.
Tim, it occurs to me that there's a lot of work that will flow from this study, and that it very well will take multi-years to work through it all. I suggest that you and the consultants and your team put together some kind of a proposal to us that prioritize what you think is the best expenditure of money, and what we would do in each of the phases, and bring that back so we have some detail to talk about.
Absolutely.
If you could do that in a way that lets us allocate a significant amount of money for next year to do this work, I think that would be a good idea. You've got time to work this into the budget,
Mhm.
and I think that would be smart.
Yes, I agree.
And again, this report, the full report, is available in the Public Works Department.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if anybody wants a copy of the full report, I can email
Right.
it.
Okay. Any other questions from the board members? All right,
No.
Tim, again, I'd like to have you come back to us fairly soon so we can make sure we're moving forward on this. I think one of the potential benefits is to buy time for us as we are working through the issue of replacement or upgrading the existing wastewater treatment plant. All right, Ben, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Brandon, Chuck, thank you.
Good, clear, and concise presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
We'll be in touch.
All right, Tim, anything else that you want to take out of order?
Nope, that was it.
Wait a minute, I think I saw the fire chief. Yeah, is on the line. Perhaps we could go down to new business item F.
Right, okay, so.
Good morning, Chief. How are you?
Morning. Thank you. Hey, thanks for having us, guys.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
So Chief Andrade has requested the use of the fuel pumps at the highway yard. During they're planning a reconstruction and an addition on the District 1 fire station at 10 Bridge Street. And they'll be replacing and adding new fuel pumps during that project. But until that project is finished, which is estimated for about 8 to 12 months, they'd like to use the fuel pumps at the highway yard. So for this use, we would provide them with a number of key fobs to use our fuel master program in the module to control the pumps, which is, you know, any usage is recorded to that fob and billed through our billing system. So they will be billed like any other department in town is billed, and once they're done, they would go back to using their own pumps. And years ago, we also had an emergency kind of mutual aid agreement for fuel in an emergency. If say they couldn't get to their fuel pumps, or say a truck was on the other side of the bridge, and they could come to our facility and use our pumps.
Tim, is this memorandum of agreement intended to be permanent for that reason?
So the emergency is, but the
Sure.
the consistent use is temporary.
So there's no question that District 1 can access the pumps during an emergency. I want to make that clear. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Any board members, any questions?
No,
What do you need from us, Tim? It looks like this is an agreement between the town and the district. Do you want us to affirm our support, or what kind of a formal action do you want?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Please affirm your support.
all right. I'll entertain a motion to affirm support of the memorandum of agreement between the town and Fire District 1.
I'll make a motion to affirm the board's support to provide temporary fuel use for Fire District 1.
Mr. LaBelle has made a motion to affirm support. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second from Mr. Alves. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. LaBelle,
Aye.
Mr. Alves,
aye.
chairman votes aye. Thank you, chief. Thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you guys for your working with us on this. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely.
All right. Tim, do you think there's any reason for us to send something to the select board on this? Perhaps a note indicating
can-
our support?
Yeah, we can put something together. We have the request from Chief Andrade as well as I think John Herron, and then we can put something in writing stating, you know,
All right.
all the details.
All right.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything else that we should take out of order? I don't see anything. All right, so we'll go back to old business A, which is charter amendment. We found out last week that the charter amendment to reassign responsibility from this board to the select board for hiring and determining salary of the public works director, that proposal is back. That change to the charter is back on the fall agenda for town meeting. So I wanted to have a discussion about this and see if there was any change in the board's opinion and whether it would be appropriate for us to reaffirm the position we took last spring.
Well, I guess I could characterize it in just a couple of words. I'm disappointed and annoyed.
Okay. Mr. Alves, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comment. I don't think we should change our position. That's my opinion, and leave it up to the locals. So,
All
if
right.
they want to present it to town meeting, it's been that way. They've been trying for years, and let them in, I guess. But I think we should stand firm. That's my opinion.
All right.
So for an old city guy, Mr. Chair, what's the process? This goes to select board, then town meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
and my understanding is the select board will see this at their next meeting and possibly the meeting afterwards.
Correct.
And for the board's information, the finance committee is meeting this evening, and they asked us for a copy of the memorandum that we prepared last spring. And with the board's concurrence, if there's no objection, I would be happy to attend their meeting and share with them the position the board took formally last spring. Okay, any comments on this item? So the board's,
Nope.
in summary, then I understand that the board's position has not changed. and that the outline presented in the, our concerns expressed in our May 6th memorandum to the Select Board and the Charter Review Committee stand as stated.
I had also provided Rob with the memorandum from 2020 from the former town administrator when he created a committee to search for the director after Mr. Hickox had posted his retirement papers. I know there was discussion at the last town meeting that there wasn't correspondence between the board, the select board and the Board of Public Works, but that a committee was, created for that purpose.
Tim, do you recall whether that committee was created after this board raised some concerns about the initial process?
Yes, it was after this board, I believe, raised concern because there wasn't communication from the select board to the Board of Public Works and the former town administrator to the Board of Public Works regarding
So
the search.
my point being that that memorandum does not fully describe the circumstances under which that committee was put together. Just
Correct. It
to
just
make sure
states that
everybody's clear on that.
it just states that there was a preliminary, I think, committee had selected some candidates and prior to that committee being
Yeah,
created, but it didn't state the details of that.
right. It sort of glossed over that part.
Yes.
All right. I don't see since we're not changing our position here, I don't see any reason for a formal action. Board members, how do you feel about that?
No, I'm fine.
All right,
I agree.
okay. All right, then moving on to item old business B, approve and accept, I'm sorry, FY 25 Fall Town Meeting CIP, Tim?
So, this year, a complete kind of restructure of capital was requested going into the fall town meeting. Usually we don't revise or update the capital requests in the middle of the fiscal. We usually just use our spring town meeting capital requests and articles that were funded, but we were asked on August 19th to use new updated 10-year forms and some different explanations of our capital. So we worked with, I worked with all the department heads on updating all of the capital forms, similar to when we do the budget in the spring. And we submitted those to the finance director and the capital improvement committee, and I met with them last week. I presented on the 12th, on September 12th, I presented to the capital improvement committee, and then they met again yesterday to discuss and draft the warrant. I spoke with Gary. I requested a copy of the draft to review, and as they plan to present this draft to the select board for them to vote on this coming meeting on the 23rd. So,
Tim, issues of formatting aside, are the requests that will be that are proposed in the warrant as we approved and as the department recommends, or were they cut back?
Nope, they were, if anything, they were added to, based on items that came up through the year. So we went through and removed any items that were approved, at the Springtown meeting for funding and kind of revamp the requests, and like I said, we reprioritized some items and maybe added some items and moved some around on the list. So like the present, how we presented in the spring were 5-year capital plans. And then based on the recommended rate structure, we looked at a 10-year capital plan for water and sewer. So we updated these forms to include that proposed capital structure rather than what we proposed in the spring. So.
Board members, any questions?
I do not.
I do have a copy of the draft warrant that was sent over to me last night. If you want me to share my screen, or I can just send it to you, I can email it to you to review.
I'd like to, if you could send it to me, Tim, I'd like to see it.
Yeah, why don't you send it to the board?
I can do that.
And this is a draft, right?
This is a draft of the warrant that's going to the select board on Monday night.
All right. Any other comments on this? Or questions?
I'll also, I plan to share this with my department heads as well to see if they have any comments or questions or concerns. But it looks like they work pretty well, and they're looking to fund a lot of projects and vehicles and this year. So look like a successful warrant, I'd say, or capital plan.
All right, if there are no other comments or questions, we'll move to new business B. Contract for supply and installation of new breakers.
So we have, we had advertised the switchgear breaker replacement project. And we had also simultaneously submitted this to Bristol County Opera for funding. We had submitted for, well, we had originally submitted for a higher estimate, kind of a rounded up estimate with some contingency, but because we had an estimate for the project at $212,098, the county would only award that much. So they awarded the $212,098, but unfortunately, of the 3 bids that we received, the lowest bidder was at $260,620, which was about $48,522 higher than the estimate in the ARPA funding. The day of the bid, I submitted the remaining balance as a request to ARPA for funding, and that is currently under level 2 review, which I believe is the last review. And I'd recommend to award the contract to Sparks Company Incorporated for $260,620 pending funding through Bristol County ARPA.
Board members, any questions or comments? Tim, what do you think the prospects are for approval by the county?
I think it looks pretty good. The funding audit goes through, multiple steps. It goes through a draft, it goes through a certification, and through the certification process. We answer any questions and update any documents, and any questions that they have. And then it goes to level 1 review, and then, I believe that's the completion of the auditing review, and then it goes to level 2 review, which is the county, and then they vote on it. So I think it looks pretty good. They did approve the original project, so I don't see any reason why they wouldn't approve the additional funding for that project.
What's the deadline for ARPA funding, given this kind of a situation?
It's September 30th.
Right.
So
If,
with this vote of award, I will submit the vote of award as well to APA, to Bristol County as well, and a notice to proceed.
so, but wait a minute. So
Actually,
if
yeah, pending funding, yes.
does that mean the county has to take action by September 30th?
I don't believe they do. They just want projects funded, or they want projects awarded by September 30th.
Rick, do you have any comments?
I do not, no.
All right. Tim, would you give us a sense of what kind of a motion you need from us?
Just to award the project to Sparks Company Incorporated for $260,620 pending funding through Bristol County APA.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to award the bid for contract 24 WPCO2 supply and installation of new breakers to, what's the name of the company? Sparks
Company.
Company. In the value of $260,620.
Contingent on approval by ARPA?
Yes.
I mean, by the county
By the
through the
county.
ARPA process?
Yep.
All right. Well, I have a motion by Mr. LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Mr. Alves. Roll call vote, Mr. LaBelle,
Aye.
Mr. Alves,
aye,
Chairman votes aye. Item is approved. Tim, would you keep us informed as to how this goes? This is actually, I see this as a fairly important project here.
Definitely is.
All right. With that item, new business C, Weston Sampson cellular conversion, Tim?
So this amendment was not submitted in time for the meeting. So therefore we'll have to revisit this item during our October meeting. I know Weston Sampson had some other items and meetings going on. I think they're doing a lot of work this week. So they didn't get the contract over to me yet. So.
All right, so we will continue item C, cellular conversion contract. All right,
Continue.
next is item D, approval of Dartmouth rate study amendment.
Yeah, so this is part of the rate study in the organizational study or efficiency study that we contracted with Weston Sampson and the Abrahams Group. We had originally contracted with them for $95,000, and it was split up through, it was $30,000 from the water and sewer enterprise. It was $30,000 from the solid waste and recycling enterprise, and then $35,000 was from the admin budget. Due to additional hours in preparation for multiple presentations to the Board of Public Works and Select Board, as well as additional hours for detailed interviews that we added, where the Abrahams Group and Weston Sampson came and spent about at least 8 hours, maybe more, here at the DPW for multiple days to interview different staff. They are requesting an additional $27,000, which includes multiple presentations to the board, for the organizational or efficiency study, as well as to the select board. We currently do not have funding for this, as we had gone to capital for the original 95,000. But I did speak with Gary Carrero, the finance director, and due to the Bristol County ARPA funding, the recent HVAC project at the schools, there's an additional over 600,000 in the revenue replacement ARPA funding. And he recommended that I request the funding through the select board for this project. For that.
Does that need to then go back to the county on the
Nope.
tight deadline?
No, this isn't Bristol County funding. This is revenue replacement funding, so we do not have to present to the county. We just, as long as it's approved by the select board, we can move forward.
So Tim, what
Is this
you're
a
asking,
reasonable request for the amendment?
I think it is.
Um,
They did put a lot more hours in than expected. Throughout the rate study, they presented here at the board multiple times. Yeah, so that was additional hours.
Too many times.
Yeah, so.
Um,
So, and then as we've gotten into the efficiency study, and an organizational study, which was requested by the select board. We've added some more work in details that they weren't expecting, that we weren't expecting either. But I think
where's
it's a
the
more,
extra 27,000 coming from?
so I will be presenting at the select board meeting, a request for this additional funding through the ARPA revenue replacement.
all right, so what you're asking for is approval contingent on funding from the select board?
Yes.
All right, board members, any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'm still, this is for 74,000 and 48,000?
No, that's the total new contract.
Okay,
So the original contract was for, I believe, 34 and 48, it was 95,000.
so because I guess I don't have the right paperwork.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have the new contract, which is the total of 122,000.
correct.
Right, that's the new contract. They didn't itemize the additional funding of the 27,000. They just amended the contract to say 74,000 for the rate study and then 48,000 for the
So they're asking for an additional 27,000.
27,000. So the amendment would be for a total of, and not to exceed, 122,000.
Yeah, okay, because the numbers didn't make any
But-
sense to me.
Right.
Look,
In which we
Right,
have.
and that's
Yeah,
the
Rick, I'm
problem we
sorry.
had before, because it's a new contract for the total amount of 122 and change versus the amendment of 27,000 and change.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's a little confusing, so
I see that as well.
they don't, so I don't feel comfortable signing, that's my opinion.
I
They
still have
should
to go.
amend it and make,
I still have to go back to the
Subject
select
to-
board for funding, so.
All right, so Tim, could you ask Weston Sampson to clarify and reissue that the amendment
Yes,
to deal with this confusion?
Yep.
And
Yeah,
at the same time, go before the select board. And how do you want to, is it acceptable to bring this back in October?
yes,
That's not going to slow it down?
it might.
well, can we approve it subject to the proper amendment and
yeah,
review of Tim and approval through the select board accordingly?
And
Yeah,
I can
I could agree with that.
I can send you a copy of the original. If It wasn't in here, the original, approved contract. And under Article 5, payments to the engineer, you know, the amendment is to delete the subsections 5.1 and 5.2 and replace them with these two subsections. And I understand that's confusing, and they should add the adjusted amount.
Yep.
So I can have them add that to Section 5, to Article 5, and then we can approve it.
All right.
So,
So with that understanding, do I have a motion?
a motion to approve amendment number 2 to agreement for engineering services with Weston and Sampson, contingent upon a revised payment schedule? Is that what we would call it?
Yes,
I
For
think it would be called an amendment.
$27,000,
it's amendment, yeah,
an amendment for $27,000.
yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, to a total new contract of 122,000.
Or, okay, as stipulated.
With subject to the select board approval as well, correct?
Correct.
And
Correct,
opera funding,
okay.
and opera funding?
Yeah, yes, well, the
Right.
ARPA funding is in the select board's control.
Okay, very good.
All right,
Okay.
so I have a motion by Director LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Director Alves. Roll call vote, Mr. LaBelle,
Aye,
Mr. Alves,
aye,
chair votes aye. Item is approved. Tim, why don't you give me a call when you've got a revised contract,
I will.
and I'll offer to go through it with you and then sign it pursuant to this action by the board. All right, next item is item E, PFAS evaluation.
Yeah, so in this spring town meeting, we requested $50,000 towards this PFAS evaluation. So Weston and Sampson has presented this agreement for $50,000 to move forward with that evaluation. And to let you know, and as part of this project, we also we're contracting with a company to provide aggressive sampling and testing for PFAS at all of our wells and treatment facilities. So that's a separate contract from our normal testing. And for that,
$50,000 entails the sampling, Tim?
no, $50,000 is for the evaluation, but we need to complete the sampling for this evaluation.
So what's the
And-
evaluation have to do? What do you do with the evaluation?
So if you
I
read through the evaluation, they're gonna evaluate the levels and assist the owner in preparing preparing the sampling program, tabulate and work on the results as it relates to federal and state requirements. And then issue a technical memorandum,
so what's the value of the sampling program?
26,000.
And that's not included in this,
That's not included in this.
but that's covered?
It's covered. We've actually contracted with the company and using our operational budget for water. But I also submitted this for Bristol County ARPA funding. And I submitted the procurement documents, Bristol County, and this is also at level 2 review.
No, okay, good. So their job under this contract is to evaluate all the samples that are collected and tested and what?
And prepare a technical memorandum.
Okay,
Are they gonna, I think I read, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that they're going to give us some idea of alternative treatment if necessary.
Yes, yeah. Yep, and yeah, so recommended mitigation
Okay,
based on, based on the sample results if needed.
Yeah, all right. All right,
Just a question, the samples will tell you if they meet the levels or not, so I'm a little confused. So if you exceed the levels, then you have to act.
Yeah, so what we're doing, we're bringing,
So
we're kind of ahead of the game.
$1,000.
We're ahead of the game in evaluating this, trying to take the bull by the horns and start an evaluation of the PFAS, levels. And we need the sampling. We need to do the sampling to do that. And we'd like the consultant to evaluate these samples and recommend any mitigation moving forward. And trying to be proactive on this, now rather than reactive. Once the either EPA or DEP, propose,
Is Steve in here?
Regulations.
Does he
yeah,
seem
he's
that
here.
this contract is acceptable?
Yeah, I believe this contract is acceptable. We need to be prepared for the future, with the numbers that are being changed currently.
Right.
And as you know, it's a hot topic throughout the country. And we just don't want, while we're doing all our treatment plan adjustments and whatnot, we want to make sure that we're in place, ready to go for the future, if we have to add any other additional treatment. So
I know Mansfield had to build carbon filters, so
yeah.
which
we've
may
done
be,
that to multiple plants, so. Was
Yeah,
that,
at 687, and our first plant, we have room for carbon filters there. That was designed a long time ago. Right now, we're getting set up at 579 to do the fall log and whatnot, and I think we're putting pipes in for future. So if we have to go to carbon filters at that location, we'll be ready to go. And then when we do 299,
Okay.
it will be the same way. So it's a win-win for us all the way around.
and that 579 was also designed by this consultant,
okay, so they're
We-
familiar with our
yeah.
system, very good.
Yeah, and they completed the full evaluation of the distribution system and treatment facilities back a couple of years ago. And we, at that time, we had asked, about moving forward with a PFAS evaluation as well, and now we're at that point.
yeah, I think it's great to
Okay.
be proactive, given the sensitivity of this.
Yes.
All right, board members, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agreement for engineering services with Weston and Sampson to evaluate the drinking water PFAS in the town of Dartmouth. And it was to the value of $50,000.
I have a motion by Director LaBelle. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Director Alves. Roll call, Mr. LaBelle,
Aye,
Mr. Alves,
aye,
Mr. LaBelle votes aye, Mr. Alves votes aye. Chairman votes aye. Item is passed. We dealt with Fire District 1 temporary fuel use. Tim, I got just a comment on that.
Yes.
I understand that it's convenient for the district to have its own fuel supply. Is there history to that? Do all the districts have their own fuel supplies? Does
I'm
it
not
make
sure if they
sense
do.
for all the districts to have their own fuel supplies?
I know District 3 has their own fuel
It-
supply,
yeah.
and so does the District 2. They have a portable tank right next to the building.
Yeah.
Above ground tank.
And the police department also have their own tanks as well.
All right. Okay.
And I mean,
gentlemen, if I may,
Yeah.
if I may, I have to leave, unfortunately. My apologies for any inconvenience.
All right. Good luck with your appointment.
Very good, thank you all, take care.
yep, take
Hey,
care,
Rick. Bye.
take care, Rick.
All right, at 8:40, Director Alves has left. We still have a quorum, so the meeting will continue. Next item is committee updates. Mr. LaBelle, do you have anything to report?
No,
All right, I will, as I mentioned earlier, attend a FinCom meeting to discuss the proposed charter amendment at Fall Town Meeting. Tim, do you expect anything to come up about the capital budget or the new formatting? That's this afternoon at 5.
You mean, do I expect that at Fall Town Meeting?
No, at the FinCom meeting this afternoon.
They may discuss it. You know, they may mention that, you know, that the Capital Improvement Committee did create a draft. I'm not sure if it's on their agenda. Probably not, because it was just created yesterday, but
All right.
I'm not 100% sure.
Well, as appropriate, I will play it by ear.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
And like I said, I will send you the draft so you can review it.
All right. The next item is the long-term capital improvements planning committee. At their last meeting, they expressed an interest in understanding how the department would use borrowed funds to catch up on road repair and maintenance, since that particular element of the department's responsibility has been underfunded the last few years. And Tim, I understand that you and your team are working on something that we can discuss. Given that the committee was supposed to meet earlier this week and it did not, I don't know when the next meeting is. But having introduced this item, Ron, do you have any observations or ideas, recognizing this is coming at you pretty quickly?
right now, no comments.
All right. If you have any ideas, it's probably or comments, if you want to get them to Tim, and so he can consider them as this moves forward. Again, if an example is if we have been underfunded for 3 years and we're, as a result, 2 years behind in our road maintenance and repair and reconstruction, would it be appropriate to take out a loan and try and catch up in a single year or maybe 2 years? And if so, what would that do to the overall schedule of road maintenance in the future? If you have a big slug of work that's done, does that throw the cycle off? But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've been thinking, and I don't have any kind of answer.
Yeah,
It may be that with adequate funding over the course of several years, we could catch up in a planned and timely manner.
in my experience, Mr. Chairman, catching up is almost an impossibility, especially in New England. Delaying projects because you don't have enough money only compounds that issue, and compounds it significantly, because then you really start to fall way behind. You know, residents expect services from their community and, you know, from government, and shortchanging how we travel through the town is not good. It's not good. You know, I think the guys are doing an admirable, job, with the streets, but there's never enough money.
No,
There's never enough money.
No.
One
Right.
quick question I have, Tim, is TIP funding. Do we have any projects in the queue?
we do. We have a number of projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're always working on designs to get things,
We have, the crossroad, from basically the fire station or Walmart, driveway heading northeast to, the assisted living complex, Autumn Glen, right before right at the Eversource substation before
Mhm.
Azalea Drive. So that's phase one that we've submitted. VHB is doing the design work. We walked with the Sioux for utilities, a couple weeks ago. And they will be scheduling a design public hearing, in probably in the next upcoming month. So I'm assuming somewhere probably early November that we'll see the design public hearing for Crossroad.
Mhm.
That includes road reconstruction, sidewalk, granite curbing, stormwater. Eversource says, through that, utility walk is looking to replace some of their gas main, in addition to what they've already replaced on Crossroads. And we'll have to do they have to move, I think, about 18 utility poles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be a pretty expensive project when done. The prices have skyrocketed.
Yeah, I mean,
Skyrocketed.
I'm assuming that you know, your team is looking at all the utilities
Yes,
before any road is considered.
correct.
Um, uh, the, does your staff work on any designs in-house to submit to TIP, or do we always use?
Typically to submit to the tip because of the amount of work entailed now,
Yeah.
and it's gotten extremely more in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, they require certified survey. So you know, RLS they have to be certified with the state to certify as and we've run into issues where surveys were done for some of the submitted projects before they require that requirement from Mass DOT, and now they're requiring it, so we have to go back and resurvey it.
Yeah, so it's difficult to
Yeah,
do them
yeah.
in-house, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then all the submittals, and, you know, and just working through that, there's a lot of hours that we just don't have the staff. I mean, we have staff that do our in-house designs that we do work on. We're working on, and we're working on 3 projects, in-house. So we're working on the Flag Swamp Road, reconstruction and stormwater, Hicksville Road, reconstruction and stormwater, and, Bridge Street and Middle Street, reconstruction, design. And that Bridge Street and Middle Street is planned to align with another project that we have on the tip to reconstruct Dartmouth Street, down to Prospect Street, and then Prospect to, from Dartmouth Street to Elm.
Yeah,
The issue with that is that project's been underway for quite a long time, and it was proposed to construct a mini roundabout at the intersection of Middle Dartmouth and Prospect. And that went back and forth for over a year, and Mass DOT voted it down. And they've also had a lot of issues with the right-of-way work on Prospect Street, because they do require, if they're gonna fund the project, they require everything to be completed on their terms. So it, you know, if they want a 10-foot shared use path on one side, a 5-foot walkway on the other, you know, a separated bicycle lane, and we don't have the right-of-way on Prospect for that. So, and speaking with VHB, I might remove the section of Prospect Street from the TIP program and just work on the Dartmouth Street piece, and then
Yeah.
we can design and construct the Prospect Street portion.
Yeah.
And we did mill and overlay that last year after Eversource gas had gone in there, so we did overlay that, and it's in good shape right now. So I think, you know, we can work on that project. You know,
Good.
and moving forward, we also have phase 3 of Fons Corner Road, which is north of, north of the railroad tracks on Ponce Corner Road to Old Fall River Road. But I've been holding off on that project, so I really want to prioritize Dartmouth Street Cross Road. And we have a third project that I'm prioritizing. It's the Hawthorne Street reconstruction from Slocum Road to the New Bedford line, and it may include some work in the New Bedford to connect like a shared use path and bike lanes and everything. So we're working with that. We've submitted that project, and we met with Mass DOT and our consultant, and the project's moving forward.
Good.
I also had I worked with Serped to complete a traffic signal warrant analysis at the intersection of Slocum Road and Hawthorne Street, and I think they're going to be working on that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Does anyone from your office attend the Serped meetings?
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, this month's meeting was canceled, but I attend the JTPG meeting.
Yeah.
So the Joint Transportation Group with Serped, and then I believe Chris Vitale attends the MCPPO, the MPO meetings.
The MPO. Yeah. I went to the MPO.
Yeah.
meeting. Mr. Chairman, I don't, in regards to borrowing long-term off, for an amortized period of time for street reconstruction, I would defer to, finance committee for something like that, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
No. So this year, just to let you know, so this year we've done just under $4 million of work we scheduled this year, and most of it's completed. We just completed a micro seal overlay of Highland Avenue from Route 6 all the way to Old Fall River Road, or it's being completed today. So we've done about 4.8 miles of milling and overlay, 0.8 miles of full depth reconstruction, 0.7 miles of hold in place recycling and overlay, 3.2 miles of micro seal, and we programmed about 19 miles of crack seal, but I believe we got about half of that completed. So and this has been spread through several funding mechanisms where, we had, in the spring, we were awarded $200,000 in road maintenance funding, and they are proposing to award in the draft for another $800,000 at fall town meeting.
Yeah.
We have Eversource cost sharing, so any work that Eversource Gas has done on our streets, as far as replacement, not just for connecting a service, but for replacement work over 100 feet, we charge them a cost sharing fee to reconstruct the road. So we 1.1 million went into that came from that funding source. About 523,000 came from road maintenance this year. Chapter 90, we've used 1.6 million this year, and we had some leftover from last year because our allotment's about 1.2 million annually. And then we have the fair share plan, which was funded to municipalities based on their Chapter 90 funding and the number of employees. We got just over 600,000 through the fair share plan.
Fair share, that's new to me. What's that?
Yeah, that's a new plan that Governor Healy had signed, and and to give municipalities more money towards road work. And so we got, like I said, we got an additional 600,000, and 440,000 of that was used already for this road work.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this, Tim, I'm impressed with the work that you guys are doing around the town. I think the roads are in good shape, but the worst thing that anybody can do is defer maintenance on roads, because it'll just turn around and cost you more in the long run.
Yeah, and so, keeping these schedules and doing all this work and it's such a short season that we have, you know, you try to get it, try to catch up in one season, like you said, it's not really feasible. For one,
You don't have the time.
you know, you don't have the time, and then physically, you know, there'd be detours upon detours, right? So we, you know, we try to schedule around town. Paul does a great job of scheduling this and sometimes pulls out of the hair. And, you know, we had the, you know, between weather and the asphalt plants breaking down and projects pushed off because of other projects in the queue, you know, it's tough to keep on track, and we've done a good job with it. Some of the past projects that we've fallen behind on are usually the larger road reconstruction and sidewalk improvement, where they're high number projects. And in the draft for our capital improvement plan for the fall town meeting, the capital improvement committee has supported multiple road reconstruction projects moving forward this year for I think about $1 million worth of road improvement projects on top of the $1 million in road maintenance funding.
Yep, no,
So-
good job.
So Tim, if that money is made available this year because of the weather in the winter, it's going to be tough to actually spend that money, say, before spring.
Yeah,
So-
you're not gonna get that done.
No.
Because the
Yeah,
sidewalk,
exactly.
and the sidewalk project, we need design.
Yeah, so typically when we
get
get,
it.
like Paul said, we need design. So typically if we get approved in the fall for a reconstruction project, that gives us the green light to go out and design these projects.
Right.
If we haven't designed them already, and then once spring rolls around, we can, or towards the end of winter, we can look at advertising these projects for a green light in the spring.
Yeah, and so
I'll
that's,
be honest with you, we do a little more. We would have done a little more this year. Last year I did 2 rounds. I did it late summer. Early summer for late summer and a fall round of mill and simple streets. Like Timmy said, that we follow Eversource, no really need design. But this year I can't because I'm struggling. I'm down 11 people. We normally do it. These projects, if you see all the projects we've done, we're tasked to go behind doing a little touch-up work on the driveways, luminous seeding, and the adjustment needed. Because that's how it's funded. If we were to fund a contractor to do that, we'd be doing half of the work we do. But with
Right.
personnel, I can't catch up. I can't do another round. I discussed with Timmy and there about a couple of roads that we are going to finish, like Idlewood minor roads and minor work that has to be done. We're going to finish those. But I can't. I might be able to get another road. We're looking at doing another short little road. But really right now we can't commit because lack of manpower. Any given day, Tuesday, I walk in, 4 guys call in, 3 drivers. You know what I need for drivers? You know what I have for drivers? I had just enough drivers for solid waste and recycling. Nobody on the sweeper, nobody on my mowers, and a little crew to do some luminous seeding. That's it. A couple years ago, I had 2 crews out there, plus enough to support the mowers and the sweepers and the solid waste. It's a continuous struggle about manpower. That should be the key focus of anything discussed coming up.
so Tim, that's a good segue into your personnel vacancies. Are you done with road work? Do you want to get into personnel?
I did have a couple things to share if you don't mind. I was going to share either a list of the roads that we did work on this year, and I also have through our beta pavement management asset management program, we have basically a list of an estimate of, you know, it's a incomplete or road maintenance that needs to be completed, and I don't believe the 60% increase in asphalt was actually part of that or included in that. So I think this would be a little higher. So let me just share. So can you see this? So this is our road repair backlog summary of from everything from routine maintenance, which may be crack sealing, to full depth reconstruction of a street. So we're looking at, you know, just under 37 million in projects. And like I said, I would probably add that 60% of asphalt increase, which would put this above 50 million.
And so I hear that there are two things that are constraining the work. One is money and the other is personnel.
Yes.
Okay,
And time.
And time.
and time,
And time.
but you can't,
And the longer,
Not construction season.
and the longer you defer, the, you know,
the worse the
the
backlog.
worse it is.
Yep. All right, so,
So now we can move into vacancies.
all right, so let's, okay, go ahead.
All right, so to touch base on, CDL drivers, kind of going back, the select board had approved that we can start drivers, HMEO positions at a higher step than a step one. I believe we can start them at was it step 6, I believe? And or is it 4? Sorry.
4. I thought you
It's
said
4.
4.
Yeah, it is 4. It is 4. We're moving the current drivers up to a 6 and bringing new drivers at a 4. So there's nobody's being brought in over current employees. So with that said, we've interviewed a number of applicants. We've had more applicants than we have in the past couple of years for drivers. I think we hired one driver and he lasted a day and resigned. Wasn't for him. And we've interviewed a few other drivers, and we have other applicants that we're planning on interviewing. We have one applicant that has agreed to the job that we've offered the position to, and he's planning to start, I believe, October 7th. So we should have a new driver starting on October 7th. And like I said, we'll continue to interview and try to get new drivers in here.
How many driver positions are available?
Total, I want to say, it's not 22, is it, Paul? Why that number is stuck in my head?
Well, assuming it's
yeah,
22.
yeah,
How
yeah.
many applications do you have?
We probably have 3 or 4 applicants. Yeah. We don't have 22 available. We have 22 total, which would be throughout all departments in the DPW. I think we're down about 7 or 8
CDLs.
CDL drivers. Yes.
And you've got 2 or 3 applicants for CDLs?
Yes. Yeah. And then we have,
Trying to speak to you, tell me you stepped out.
we have 2 SMEO positions, which also require a CDL and a hoisting license. So we recently had a retirement. One of our SMEO operators retired, and we had an existing vacancy, which typically will pull out of our HMEO pool. And we recently posted the 2 positions, and we had 3 applicants from in town, and we're looking to hire 2 of those SMEOs into those positions as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be recommending that we post that outside because the applicants don't have a completed license. So
Okay.
I'm going to be recommending, I haven't had a chance to send an email out to post it outside.
Yep.
See what we can get. We do it also, there's another one in the works, like I said, for some reason, it happened. We got a cluster, a handful of important people who hired the same day and they're retiring. I'm going to probably get another retiree in a major position coming up in the next month or so. And that's another one down. It's all crucial. It's the importance of drivers. That's the importance, like I said. Well, a couple of years ago, I'd have my 3 sweepers out, 3 mowers out, fulfill the solid waste and recycling, fulfill 2 crews, 2 drivers, 1 driver in each of those crews with an operator. I'm scraping the barrel days to put one crew out and fulfill solid waste without losing, and no sweepers or mowers out. It's just a shame. Nothing can do. It's all about the cycle right now, and I attribute this to all the select board and to the prior administrator, the way they did the classification, and which makes our job, and the director will tell you, Tim will tell you, very difficult to bring personnel in the way we're set up as a structure for the important positions. And that I blame back to the prior administrator with the, I think, a crayon reclassification study that was actually done pretty well, but how he presented to the Board of Selectmen, and which wrongfully they voted on a draft. And that's what's killing us right now. There's been a mass exodus. We've lost drivers to the state. We've lost drivers to retirement, and we can't. Tim will tell you, we hired a driver 2 weeks ago. He lasted 1 day.
So
1 day.
do you, we've been dealing with this issue for, well, 3 years at least.
A lot longer. I've had openings a lot longer than 3 years. And the
Right, but I mean,
study didn't help.
This board, this group of directors, and we've got new people in town administration. We have at least one new member of the select board. Generally speaking, the select board is supportive of good roads. And it seems to me that if we have a specific restructuring of these classifications and descriptions, if we can put it down on paper and the board can forward it to the town administrator and the select board, even though it has to go through a contract negotiation, even though that's going to take a lot of time. I think if we put something down on paper that can be supported by the unions, the shop stewards, supported by Tim, your management team, and this board, I would like to put the ball in the administration's court, and I'd like to put it in the lap of the select board. There's no reason, I can't think of any reason not to do that. At this point, I don't care if somebody's annoyed.
I agree, and we have a reclassification study coming up that was and which includes updating all the job descriptions in town, and then we have a union negotiations coming up as well. So,
Yeah, well, let's get ahead of that. Let's tell them what
I
we
agree.
think it should be rather than let them tell us,
I agree.
right?
On the positive side of vacancies and hiring,
Yes, we'll do it.
we advertise with 2 water pollution control operator positions, and we filled one, and we had multiple applicants for the second position with licenses. So we've interviewed, I think, 1 or 2 out of those, and we have more interviews going on before we can before we hire the second operator. So that's, progress and good success with some licensed applicants for that position.
Finally, a positive.
Yes. Yes.
All right, anything else on personnel?
Yeah, I'd like
No,
to give a number of, here's a perfect example. Between some new employees came in, some have left, some come in. Here's a perfect example. Derek started, my assistant started in January 22. We were roll calling 35 people, employees. And this 2 years between adding and losing, we're still down. This 2 years down 2, not including what's been on the books for years, for a total of about 11. And these are all drivers now, not even laborers, drivers and operators. And then I'll be honest with you, back when I took over, I took over this department back in 2018, I was roll calling 42 employees and 44 total, with me and my assistant. And that's how the number looks now.
Okay, so Paul, we got the history now. You and Tim and the rest of your team need to sit down and write out what it wants to look like. Tell us what it should look like when all of this contract negotiation and personnel evaluation, all that stuff gets done. Tell us what you want it to look like, and we'll talk about it and forward that recommendation before this process gets started.
I think that's a great idea.
I think, to be honest with you, Tim's had a good handle on this. If I'm mistaken, Tim, you presented this a couple of times to the party administrator. Timmy has a very good handle on this, but the thing is having a handle and support. Yeah, I think it's frustrating that Timmy's presented quite a few times, and if I'm not mistaken, they pretty much told him, kiss off. It ain't going to happen. So maybe the new administration be a little different, but I think Tim will dig out your existing paperwork, and I think we've talked about it quite a few times of what we need to be competitive out there. And Timmy's actually did a good job of getting a little more. That we've actually gotten a couple of drivers really interested because of his persistence of at least moving the starting grade on drivers coming in. And that was the first step. We still have a little ways to go, but I think Tim has done a very good job the last couple of months. It's given me, I got 2 in the work, knock on wood, maybe they'll stay. And that's because of Tim's persistence of getting that grade change. I mean, not grade, but the step change. You know?
Yeah, our next step is for a grade change. So hopefully.
Yeah, and so make that recommendation to this board so that we can forward it to the administration and to the select board ahead of whatever the process is going to be. Make them take it away from you. Make their job easy. Tell them the way it should be better. And just all they have to do is say yes. Okay? Make it easy for them. All right. Anything else on personnel?
Just the fact that, working with Paul on capital improvement, we were originally looking at requesting we were looking at I had a dump truck, CDL license required dump truck for plowing and construction, and we changed that, and Paul changed that to a large vehicle that can still accept a 10-foot plow but doesn't require a CDL. So moving forward, if we can get a few of these vehicles in, we can plow with our non-CDL staff.
What are you using, 1 tons?
No, actually, it's what they call, it's under a 20, it's just under CDL. Actually, I don't know if you paid attention, Mr. Bell, or anybody. I do, because I go to, when I go home, I see a lot of state bonds, and the state's been actually doing that. A lot of companies, it's above a 1 ton.
Yeah.
To handle a 10-foot plow on it is just, put it this way, it's like a 4750.
Yep. That's a good idea.
The one I'm looking at is what they call Freightliner M2.
Yeah.
And it's a class truck that it could give me the oof, and I could get it. And I got quite a few laborers that have that don't have CDL, that have quite a bit of experience on big routes. Instead of me having 2 small trucks, I just put that truck there, and I could also supplement a major route that normally takes a 6-wheel. I don't have the CDL for it.
Yeah.
But it's a little painstaking. We had to make that shuffle this year quickly, and luckily the finance committee let us do some adjustments in our CIP, and I thought to him, I've never seen that, and I was glad, because we're trying to push that in the works, and that's gonna make a huge difference.
Yes.
To at least utilize some labors instead of CDL,
All right.
Whatever works.
Yeah, that's good. But I think if the underlying problem is the personnel structure and the position descriptions and the grades, then let's attack the cause.
Yeah, well, that's one cause, and definitely needs to be attacked. I 100% agree. We're not the only, I'd say, company, but we're not the only ones looking for CDL drivers, right? So
Sure.
And
that's
I was following
money and benefits.
Yeah, I was driving back from where was I? Up in Maine or New Hampshire. And we were on the highway and a dump truck came by. And as he passed me on the tailgate, it said hiring CDL drivers with the phone number, and you know, everybody's,
Everybody.
trying to get creative.
Yep.
We posted it on the electronic signs for a while. And the crazy thing is we posted that we were hiring CDL drivers, and then from town hall, somebody said, you have to take that sign down because we're not hiring CDL drivers. And they didn't understand that the HMEO position was a CDL license requirement, but we're not gonna market or advertise that we're hiring HMEOs because the general public don't know what that is.
They don't know what that is.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So,
All right.
but
Okay, anything else on this?
Town hall didn't
Tim?
know what it was either.
Tim, if there are other positions that need adjustment,
Yep.
they should be included.
Yep. Absolutely. And while we're just mentioning changing what we order for trucks, the future with electric vehicles and mandates is also looking pretty grim for being able to purchase diesel powered trash and recycle vehicles. So that's coming down the line as well.
Well, I think it'd be smart to put that off until the electric equipment is well documented.
I
In
agree.
other words, that it really does what it needs to do.
To be honest with you right now, Tim, I was just reading an article this morning that the environmental secretary wrote a letter from the State House and they're concerned about it, requesting the delay at least to the final phase of the Clean Air Act with these diesel treatment upgrades.
Yep.
So I'm hoping that goes because the way they have that structured, they haven't had a municipality exemption. What that means, ambulances are in that class and they're not made. Fire trucks are in that class of being restricted and they're not made electric. So I'm hoping that somebody to stay up there at the State House and gives enough push to the up there to the government, Ryan Healy's administration, to at least delay the implementation of this this new law they're looking at because it's going to kill everybody. That's not made right now, and the infrastructure to charge these. If you ask any utility director or engineer, they don't have it. I know TMLP won't sustain that cost for trucking for charging stations. They already say they don't have enough in their energy grid for it. So that's something else that we out here in the front lines have to deal with now. That we're worried about come December 30th. Something doesn't change. So we're not getting younger. And that's everything's getting worse in the public works right now. That I'm making it easy in the governmental side.
All right. Tim, next item.
Next item, where are we? So
ARPA.
ARPA update. So to date, Bristol County has funded just under 4.7 million in DPW projects. Out of I think the total was over 5.3 for the town through Bristol County, and we have an additional about $250,000 in projects submitted for funding through ARPA. Like we discussed, the September 30th deadline for all awards. So, a lot of these projects are in either level 1 or level 2 review currently. So hopefully, we don't leave any money on the table and get all these projects funded.
How are we tracking?
So working with the county and Gary, finance director, who's also now acting co-administrator, we discussed me being having access to the portal, which I haven't in the last couple of years. I have not had access to the ARPA, the Bristol County ARPA portal. So they gave me access, and I've been working directly with the county and uploading new submittals and any changes and questions. So it's a lot more efficient for me to do it rather than to me get a question relayed and then try to relay it back, So So it's definitely be, and so I'm tracking it right on the ARPA portal. So I wish we had done that from the start, but we didn't. So we're moving forward with that, and hopefully I'll have some good news in the next week or so.
All right.
Next, we have the 579 Old Westport Road treatment plant upgrade. So that project was extended for the award date to November 11th. When we presented to the county, the county did approve the project, and they did award us some money, so we have the money in hand to move forward. The pre-bid was held on September 10th. We had pre-bid at 579 treatment facility there were a handful of attendees with I think about 30 companies have requested plans for this project. So the filed sub-bid opening is on September 24th, next Tuesday. And then the full bid opening is scheduled for October 8th. So I'm expecting a number of submittals on this, number of bids.
It needs to be awarded before the 30th.
No, this one is the one we extended to November 11th, so it needs to be awarded by November 11th.
Okay.
So we're trying to award that ahead of time. The project has also gone through the DEP and has been approved through DEP.
Okay.
So we'd expect to see that at our October meeting.
Yes.
All right. And then best case, when would that construction start? Next spring, you think?
All depending, if on the contract and if there's anything they can do immediately. If they can stop working before winter, or if it's a mild winter and they want to work, we'd be okay with that.
All right.
Yeah, it'll all be weather permitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so that's moving forward. We had an update I had an update on this agenda for Granite City Crushing, who had worked without a permit in the right of way, and there hasn't been any update really. The right of way permit was approved. They had filed or applied for the permit, but there were some issues with the application back at the last board meeting. But since then, we've approved the permit, but there haven't been any requested inspections for the work. They did put down some large, I think like 6-inch wrap in the right of way for the construction entrance. But that, they had a permit, but like I said, none of that work was approved. And in the permit, I made a statement that the permit was approved doesn't mean that any of the work prior to the permit was approved. So any of that work will still need to be inspected before they construct that roadway.
All right. Good luck. I hope that the level of cooperation with that builder, if it's improved, I hope it stays improved.
Well,
all right.
Yeah. So I wouldn't
next
say it
item
has
is-
improved, but it's at status quo.
Yeah, well, they applied for permits. That's an
Correct.
improvement, right?
Okay. I'd say that. Yes.
Yeah,
All right,
Tim, I actually want to apologize because maybe I didn't clearly understand the level of frustration and resistance to the town's requirements at the last meeting.
Yeah.
But please, keep the board informed, because
will.
no one should be allowed to work in this town on their own venue.
Correct.
It's by the town's rules and regulations.
It is.
And I don't really care who this contractor is. He
Me
doesn't get to tell us how things are done in the town.
Correct.
So, again, I tend to think I dropped the ball at that last meeting.
I think I could have probably submitted some more information to the board for the packet to explain more and kind of the process that had been gone through up to that point, but I didn't. So now the board understands, and I think moving forward, I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, I mean, we're all public servants, and our job is to help the public, you know, to get what they need and do, but not on their terms.
Right. The rules are there for a reason.
They're
Good
to protect,
reasons.
to protect the town and to protect the residents in the town.
Yeah, for at a lot of different levels.
Correct.
All right, next item E, Buzzards Bay Coalition Connect to Protect.
So the Connect to Protect system program, Dan Goulart presented to the Board of Selectmen on September 9th. I was at the meeting. There was overwhelming support by the select board for this project, and the select board chairman also recommended meeting with the co-acting town administrators and using $100,000 of funding from the ARPA revenue replacement as well to add some additional funding to this project. So that,
Fantastic.
yes, so that will be, I don't think it's not this meeting, but the following meeting at the select board, this will be presented as well, I think, with our $27,000 request for the amendment to the contract. I know, Rob, you had asked for kind of what our financial commitment would be for this project, and there's still a bit of research to do to all of the properties in this program. There were 122 properties, and I think Dan was looking about 80 connections. But you know, and I think, and I'm not even sure if that would take place and before that grant that they have is $100,000 grant that I believe expires in July of 2026 or June 30th of 2026. But you know, they may be able to ask for an extension at that point or move forward with another grant if the project is successful. We have a lot of research to do on parcels and betterment assessments with these parcels to figure out what our financial commitment is. And we were working with Dan to take our assessor maps and add layers to the GIS program so we can compile this data a little easier, because a lot of these sewer infrastructure systems were putting in place in the 70s. They were constructed in the 70s, and that was using the 1964 assessor maps, which are a lot different than the current assessor map. So we usually correlate that, and we research that on a application basis. So one property comes in, they want to connect to the sewer system, we research that one property. So we don't usually do 122 at the same time. It's pretty cumbersome. And Dan had come in there and spent, I think, 2 hours and said, this is a lot of work. And so we'll move to finalize this research in the next month or so, and hopefully we can get some good numbers. But if none of the properties in this project had a betterment, and we're reducing the connection fee by about $1,000, at 122, it'd be $122,000, right? So that's worst case.
But on the other hand, we'd be getting an annual cash flow from new sewer users, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's a balance to be struck. And
Right,
if the town provides $100,000 to buy down the department's cost, then that number is significantly reduced, that 122,000. I also recall that Dan was talking 20 a year for 2 years, and then
so we were looking at 40.
If how it went, and then whether to continue the program.
Right. Yep.
Right. So the outside of, the hard commitment, if you will, is 40 units
Over 2 years.
over
Yeah,
2
so
years.
So that would be 40,000 over 2 years.
Yeah, $20,000 a year out of the enterprise fund, less whatever the town is going to give us. Can you work with the town administrator and see if the department could receive a 1-to-1 compensation for the reduced connection fee? Or even perhaps, since we're talking about deadlines and $100,000, whether the entire connection fee could be paid for by the town in their infinite wisdom?
Yeah, I know that $100,000 is looking to go towards that, so for the residents, so I'm not sure about it, but yeah, I can definitely discuss this with further
Yeah, see-
with the co-acting town administrators.
Yeah, see how much you can buy that down with the $100,000.
Yes.
Particularly if it's if the select board is supportive,
Absolutely.
because that takes away any argument from existing users and the enterprise fund issue.
Right, and another kind of support statement for this project is getting these people connected, which, I expect a lot of these properties to have betterments on them, or to have had betterments in the past,
Right.
and just haven't connected. And what I had stated in front of the zoning board a while back, when there was a multi-residential development proposing to come in town that was non-conforming and had a higher than allowed discharge for that property. I had stated that we have a commitment to the properties in town that have paid betterment for the infrastructure that's in place and that it was designed for.
Right.
And even though they haven't connected yet, and their attorney actually commented and said that doesn't stand up in court, that those commitments, because they're not connected. So I think getting these people connected is the first step to that commitment,
Yeah, and get it, basically make that whole potential argument go away.
And I had
Yeah.
also kind of stated when one of the select board members asked if we had the capacity for these properties, and if you're doing 20 a year or less, it's not a huge impact for a single family residential home to connect, at 125 to 250 gallons per day. But to have an 80,000 gallon gallon per day development come online, that takes a lot of those homes out of the equation.
Yeah, it does.
And that's what I
And-
said. The issue is the non-conforming developments that have large flows that take up that capacity.
Yeah, we had that conversation in front of the zoning board of appeals last December and January. So
Yeah. And I think they thought it was a joke.
no, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else, Tim?
That is about it. Yep, that's all I have.
Okay, Ron, do you have anything?
Just one quick observation and question. Should we, as the town and, Board of Public Works, be pushing, for lack of the right word, an ordinance that would require, if you have town sewer, to connect?
We never have in the past. It's always been the Board of Health that has pushed to connect, whether a project was mandated by the Board of Health or if they had issues with septic failures or anything. Or I think any projects that have had sewer for a number of years, the Board of Health's been looking at them connecting. But the DPW have never created a mandate for that. And I'm not sure if we should.
Well, that's my question. Should we? And probably should do it with the Board of Health.
Yeah.
The argument's gonna come up that says, well, I have a perfectly functional septic system. But the dates that you just gave me, I could probably almost for sure say none of them will meet Title V.
Right.
And the health
No,
department.
Ron, that's actually a really good point. It seems to me that once we get the Connect to Protect program up and running, at that point, we can start having a public discussion about an ordinance, and as a way to motivate as many people as possible to do it voluntarily.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you want to be proactive, so you want to, like the DEP coming to the town saying, we want everybody to modify their septic systems, yet we have sewers and septic systems, and they should be going into the sewers, and
Yeah.
that's a very proactive approach to show the DEP that the town is moving forward.
Right.
Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think with working with these 122 properties up front is a good show for that, you know.
Absolutely.
Yep, and then you know, maybe we can move out to other watersheds as well in the town. Do the same. I know,
Yeah,
you know,
I
it
think-
does not to say that, you know, any of these properties haven't upgraded their septic systems, but I know there are a lot. I believe that Board of Health has 11 on the mandate for failed septics.
Mhm.
All right. On a related note, and something I almost forgot, I was convinced, for better or for worse, to participate in a community discussion led by the New Bedford Light on the 24th of this month. Tim, you got a copy of the notice, right?
I did.
Yeah, could you send that out to other board members? I got that, I think,
I will.
yesterday.
I will.
The issue is surface water quality. Apparently, New Bedford Light is going to publish an extensive article on nitrogen in Buzzards Bay, the whole bay, and what the issues are. And there's supposed to be a town by town summary of issues and what we're doing. And so I figured when I was approached by New Bedford Light, and as they were twisting my arm, they had my bad arm, so, you know, it hurt. I figured it was better for us to get out and tell our story, and rather than let someone else tell our story. So, Tim, I'll probably have some questions over the next week as I put together some basic talking points, that some of which I won't present up front, some of which I may, and that's one of the things we can talk about.
Absolutely.
But I just want to give everybody a heads up, and that I'll be participating, and, you know, I hope I say the right things. That's all I can say.
Me too.
I'm absolutely sure you will.
Of course, then there's the things you don't say that sometimes are just as important, right?
Yes.
All right. Anything else, Tim?
One second, hold on. Oh, so yeah, I did want to say that. So in, you know, working on this 579 Westport Road project in advertisement and bid schedule, you know, I think, you know, we may have to be creative on how we schedule a meeting, just to get this project awarded. So just keep that in mind for the next meeting. You know, we'll plan for the third Thursday of the month, but we may have to change it, or we may have to have a special meeting just, you know, just for that award. And then,
Just give us as much lead time as you can.
oh, absolutely.
So let me take a quick look here. So the second Thursday is the 10th.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm free during the day. I've got something to do late at night. My wife is coming back from some travel that night. But other than that, I think the 10th and the 17th are open.
Okay. That's good. I think we're planning for the 17th, but we'll have to, like I said, once we get closer and have an idea what's going on with the,
Yeah. Yeah, just keep us apprised.
Yep. And then lastly, so, town meeting is scheduled for October 15th, would be 2 days before the 17th.
Yeah, and I was wondering if, I wondered whether the 11th might be, if something comes up
Mhm.
that we need to deal with that could be raised at town meeting.
Absolutely.
But the only thing I could think of was the change to the charter.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Currently. So it's at 7 PM at the Dartmouth High School,
right.
on that Tuesday.
Okay, anything else?
That is it for now.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Director LaBelle moves to adjourn. The chairman seconds. Mr. Bell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. Thank you all very much for attending and thank you for your patience.